My name is Marcus Allred. I heard about Mission First Alliance, actually, originally through hearing about PTSD 911, the film that Conrad Weaver made. And I had already started getting some emails that this film was going to come out. And so I was trying to figure out, like, what is this? Who's doing this? Because I already knew there was like a need for mental wellness in the first responder community, because that need was my need. And back in the day when I was in the dispatch center and we had to deal with our own traumas, there was nobody there for me and for us. And so it sparked my interest that somebody was coming out with a film. One of the folks that he featured in the film was a dispatcher and the trauma that she was going through. And so it really hit home for me and just in general for our first responders too. Out of that, I found out that Conrad had a podcast, but I kept noticing it was missing the spiritual component. And I knew that ultimately, as a believer, that our first responders need Christ, but nobody was really talking about that part. Until one day, I saw that Jeremy was the guest. I had no idea who Jeremy was, but it caught my attention. Jeremy, right away, went to Jesus needs to be a part of this, that he is the answer, the gospel is the answer. As soon as he said that, it immediately resonated with me that, wow, somebody finally gets it. I was so excited. I went to Peggy and I was like, hey, I just heard this awesome thing. Like this person, he gets it. What he said just completely resonated in my heart. I've got to figure out how to get a hold of him, because I knew the Lord was working in my heart and I really wanted to do something and I didn't know what. But I thought, well, this guy seems to get it. He's obviously a believer. So if I can get in contact with him and talk to him, maybe there's a connection. There's some way I could get involved here. I emailed Jeremy and right away heard back, and I was like, oh wow, cool, because if you're on YouTube you got to be a star. I'm like, so I'm thinking, well, this is pretty neat. Like he's accessible, and so we started communicating right away. Jeremy had mentioned you're trying to equip churches and do training for churches, and I was like, man, that's what I would like to do, figure out how to get our church involved, because I'd already begun to talk to my pastor about what could we do as a church. Jeremy said, reach out to the ones that are in your congregation first. Be intentional about supporting those first responders and their families. Even though they're part of our church, it's still not easy to break past those barriers of trust. And the outgrowth of that conversation with Jeremy was you guys told us about the upcoming Leader Summit and the national conference. I said, what can we do? Even if we just come and show up and set up tables for you, we want to come. We want to help. And then eventually also the Arkansas retreat opened up. And it was at that retreat that the Lord said, no, yeah, this is right where I want you. I want you involved with this. And then, of course, jumping on the Zoom calls. And it's just absolutely astounding to see what God is doing. You guys have asked me to also be a regional rep for North Carolina.
It was really life-changing, seeing the ministry firsthand and seeing why he cared so much and hearing his heart that he didn't necessarily share with me.
Peggy has always been faithful to come alongside of me and to say, look, I may not have that burden right now, but the Lord's given that to you, so I'm gonna follow you. I'm gonna support you in this decision.
When I saw how much this meant to him, and how even revealed to me how we had kind of done our separate things in ministry, some together, but a lot of times separate just by nature of life. I just really felt I needed to support him in this, and I knew we needed to do it together.
That morning when I got up, my verse of the day was, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And then when we do that, the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding will guard our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. And so that morning I said, Lord, thank you for this verse. I need this reminder every day. I was like, I don't know what you have planned for today, but thank you for this reminder. I got up that morning, started my work day, and by 10 a.m. that morning, I no longer had a job. It didn't rock my world, because as soon as it happened, I knew, Lord, you gave me that verse this morning because you knew what was coming this morning, even when I did it. Right after that happened, because I work from home, I called her in and didn't tell her right away what happened. I just held up the verse of the day and I said, do you really believe this? And she's like, well, what do you mean? I no longer have a job. And so it hit her at that point, you have to answer that question at that point. Do I really believe this verse? Can I move on and not be anxious and also be thankful at that time?
That day, there were a lot of tears for me. Just the little things that I knew didn't really matter in the broad scheme of things, but just things that hit my heart, and just honestly felt bad for him. Kind of because of the rejection. There's that rejection of the company and stuff. It comes across that way.
So the Lord had been preparing my heart, I believe her heart as well. After, in hindsight, you look back. Lord, you closed that door, so you're obviously getting ready to open something else. What is that something else? Would there and could there be a place with Mission First Alliance? And I looked, and February 10th was the 2nd anniversary of Mission First Alliance, and I was like, that's kind of interesting.
To know I can trust God and trust the Lord with our family, with our future, we're resting in that, and I'm thankful that He's given us that peace and assurance.
The Lord's saying, I've got this. And we know He does. And He's just like, you just need to trust me. Give me whatever good remaining years of my life. Would you allow me to become an active part of a gospel-focused ministry? I have had a heart for our first responders because of coming from that, realizing that they need the Lord.
I realized I need to be more a part. This is an opportunity for us to be really involved in something together.
There is a biblical calling on each one of us. First is salvation. There's a calling to walking with Christ daily. There's a calling to the Great Commission, and there's a calling to love others. He's giving me the calling in that calling of loving others, in a special category, He's given me first responders, both as a burden and as a calling to love them. Well, if I have to find a home for that calling, what better place am I going to find it than a home where God has said, I've built Mission First Alliance to answer that call that I have. The evidence that God has put right in front of me for the last year, especially year and a half, of many of the things that I described to you about how I got to this point, this is where I should be to fulfill that calling. Where else am I going to go?